Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quora Metric Theory and Zenefits webinar.
Let's go ahead and meet everyone that's going to be talking today. So, starting off with myself, we're going to be talking about how to drive results with Quora ads, and I will be your host. My name is JD Prater. I'm here on the Quora for Business team. I'm actually our evangelist, and you can reach me here at this email if you have any feedback for me on this webinar or have any questions following up. I'm also fairly active on Twitter, so reach out on Twitter. Let me know what you guys think. So let's jump over to our two special guests over here with Metric Theory and Zenefits. First off, we've got Josh joining us. Josh, give us a quick intro.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar, and thank you to JD and the Quora team for inviting us to do this. So, Josh McClouse, I run marketing for Metric Theory. We're going to talk about Metric Theory in a moment. But basically, I'm a marketer for marketers. It's a pretty tough gig. My contact info is there as well. And we also have Yuri Daniels joining us today.
Yeah, Josh, I also like, Josh is in my former city, Denver. So I'm happy to have see some more Denver representation. No offense to Yuri. But Yuri, go ahead, introduce yourself as well.
Nice. Hi, Yuri Daniels here, leading the performance marketing team at Zenefits. All of our paid acquisition efforts and pipeline acceleration campaigns will kind of run through my team. I've been in the B2B marketing space for about 9 years now, seen it evolve and change, and excited to be here today with you guys here.
Nice. And where did we get that fancy accent?
Accent's it's a bit of a mix there, JD, but I'm New Zealand citizen.
Nice. We have a Kiwi joining us. Man, this is a lot of fun. Let's jump into it. So we've got a really jam-packed webinar for you guys. We're going to do some introductions for Quora and the Metric Theory. Again, Quora, you guys are probably familiar with us, but Metric Theory being an agency that is running with Zenefits some of their campaigns on Quora. So we're going to get started with some performance marketing Q&A from actual performance marketers. Then we're going to get into some results that they got for Zenefits. And then I'll be giving you guys some optimization strategies of how you can increase your performance. And then lastly, we'll do some key takeaways. So let's kick it off with some Q&A because we are Quora and we do love some questions and some answers. First off, what is Quora? This is a question that I get all the time. And it really starts with a kind of an understanding of that there's so much knowledge out there, and yet it's like not on the internet yet. So whenever we think about knowledge here at Quora, we are looking to share and grow the world's knowledge, but we also realize that we have so much more to do. It's in all of these books that we see in libraries. It's in these conferences. It's in these webinars that we're talking about right now. And so how can we get all of this knowledge onto the internet where people can have easily accessible access to it? And we've done a fairly good job with that. We've seen a huge growth in our users coming through and visitors coming into Quora, and we don't plan on slowing down in 2019. We've already seen some really great growth, and we're excited to hopefully get you guys another new number coming shortly. But as of right now, just over 300 million monthly active users. And we have a really engaged audience. So about 25% of our audience is on desktop. I know you B2B advertisers are probably really excited for that, to see a social platform that actually has desktop inventory. Yes, we do have users coming to us on desktop as opposed to other networks. And of course, we're really excited that users are engaged and they're spending a lot of time. So over 30 minutes in the app. And that's a double from what we're seeing on LinkedIn whenever we think about app engagement and whenever we think about spending time on the platform. The next question I get is, well, what is Quora? Is it social? Is it search? And it's like we're really in between. We really give you that option to move up and down the funnel. So where on social, you're kind of doing something else. You might have picked up your phone because you're bored and you're just kind of mindlessly scrolling with your thumb, all the way down to search where you've already pretty much decided what you're looking for. Quora really sits in this consideration, evaluation, and research mode. And so it's a really great place to align your advertising with the content that people are looking for. And to kind of show you guys a quick wrap up, I mean, with the monthly users coming in, spending a lot of time, there's this high intent audience of people coming here to learn about the world around them. And that does include your business. And lastly, with our brand safety. So we can position your message to high adjacent quality and feel safe that you are advertising on Quora. So that's kind of a quick nutshell of what Quora is. I'm going to turn it over to Metric Theory. Josh, who are you and what do you do?
Great question. So Metric Theory, we're the performance marketing agency. We help any business that needs to use digital advertising to find new customers. More specifically, we work with B2B technology companies, much like Zenefits, to help them find new leads for enterprise sales teams. We work a lot with retail, doing e-commerce advertising and direct consumer brands, sometimes subscription, sometimes just single unit sales. And then we also work a lot with consumer services companies. Sometimes this is apps, sometimes it's more service-oriented businesses to find new users to acquire. But basically, any business that has digital growth goals are ones that we would work with in Metric Theory.
Cool. And as far as what you guys do, anything you want to elaborate on?
Sure. So most businesses are doing paid search, of course, Google and Microsoft. Even Amazon can be considered paid search at this point. With social, that's been the kind of big growth engine for performance marketing for the last 5 years. Shopping is really big for us as well. Like I said, we work with a lot of retail. So that's not just, marketing on Amazon, Google Shopping, but also actually managing our clients' product feeds where they get a lot of exposure just by the information in their product feeds. We do media planning and programmatic services for more kind of brand-oriented display advertising, includes connected TV, even podcast advertising and other audio advertising can be transacted programmatically now. Native ads and even some direct buys or guaranteed placements on major publications. Digital video and YouTube advertising has become really big for us as well. There's a big performance component or a growing performance component from it. App advertising also is really big for those consumer services companies. And then we manage a lot of kind of emerging paid channels just like Quora ads, which is why we're talking about Quora ads today.
Nice. It sounds like if there is a place to buy ads, come and see you because you guys can find them.
Yeah, I'd put it, look, if there's a place to find new customers for you. We'll help you. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, let's do some quick Q&A here on the performance marketing landscape and see what you guys are thinking about. So my question over to you, Josh, is, what are some of the biggest trends that you're seeing from clients for Metric Theory?
Yeah. So this is really fun to kind of think a little bit about, all the stuff that we hear from clients. And of course, it changes all the time. I mentioned Amazon before. So what do they want to know when it comes to Amazon? For a retailer, should I even be listing on Amazon? Do I want to seed my customer relationship to Amazon while potentially gaining a new distribution channel, right? What are the best practices for Amazon advertising, which has grown a lot over the last couple of years, but it's become a lot more competitive as a result, right? So how do I actually get my money's worth from advertising on Amazon? And if I'm not going to go on Amazon, how do I compete with Amazon as it continues to eat more and more of retail? Big conversation for our clients right now. For the next topic on identifying your audience, finding new ways to target audiences, roughly that equates to where is my exact buyer and what is the perfect message. Sounds like a marketing holy grail of sorts, of course, but that's our job. And even as social advertising has become more mainstream, they've really pushed even search on how to target via audience. I know that we work with Zenefits and Yuri a lot to try to find the specific audience that they're looking for, even if they're typing in a specific search where we're showing a Zenefits ad. For B2B advertisers, this could be account-based marketing. It's becoming a very hot topic. So how do I market to an exact account? And for business to consumer B2C advertisers, that may be using kind of like customer data to develop a lookalike segment. But even beyond that, as lookalike segments become more explored, pretty much anyone who's running Facebook advertising is using lookalike audiences to find new customers. How do I use the other audience tools that are available to me in order to better target and get more growth? And then finally, new emerging channels. This is something that gets our teams really excited. How are we pushing our clients forward in terms of what they're doing that's different from the competition? Marketers are really worried about over-reliance on Facebook, over-reliance on Google, and soon Amazon, because they own so much of the retail space. All those are crowded, they're hyper-competitive. Where does that leave, clients who are maybe new entrants to digital advertising? They're seeing big growth. What are their opportunities where everything isn't quite so competitive and expensive? And then, which new channels actually work, or how do you get them to work, right? It wasn't too long ago that something like Instagram, which is now a major performance channel, hadn't really figured out how to perform. So they're looking to us and agencies like us to help them figure out how to make channels work that maybe they haven't been able to figure out yet.
Nice. Like it. Cool. Really good stuff, man. Let's move on to question number 2 here. And it's, where do we think performance marketing is headed? Josh, I know you hit on a few things there. I'll let you go first. And then Yuri, I'll let you follow up.
Yeah, definitely. And I can probably maybe take like the front end of each one of these issues and maybe chime in, Yuri.
No worries.
One of the first things that I thought about was incrementality measurements. It's kind of a loaded topic, but I mean, really, this is about measuring things that are really tough to actually get a performance measurement out of. This is where the data focus of our agency at MetricTheory gets me really excited about the future of performance marketing. So a few different applications for this, things like we were talking earlier about things like connected TV. So running ads on Hulu, right? How do you actually know, or even for traditional linear TV, how do you know when advertisements that you're running on TV are really impacting the business? You can use incrementality measurement as a way to understand, by A/B testing markets and run times, how it's actually impacting the business. So things that weren't measurable before, many more tools and processes to help measure those impacts now. For a lot of our clients that have been doing things like remarketing for a long time, I think there's a really healthy conversation right now on whether or not remarketing is truly incremental for your business, or are you just putting an advertisement in front of a user at the time in which they would have already purchased anyway. So understanding the amount of frequency that you want those ads showing to where it has incremental impact on your business is really big, and that's the power of incrementality measurement. As we start to move into consumer privacy a little bit more, and I know Yuri has more thoughts on regulation and where we're headed with, whether or not we're going to be able to track as much as we have in the past. Incrementality measurement is going to be that much more important, even for things like search that I think a lot of marketers have taken for granted for a long time. Do you have any?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, when you think of incrementality measurement, you just that one variable against your certain populations and groups, and being able to kind of test what's actually having an impact and what isn't. And with regulation coming in, it's going to change the landscape completely, especially with what we're allowed to track and what we're allowed to store on a user's behavior and who they are. So definitely that does seem to factor into the next two things as well, as you try to get as you invest more in creative and personalization to improve your success there.
Yeah.
It does make things a little bit more tricky.
Definitely. And more to the point on creative, right? That being the second thing here. For the last 5 years, marketing's been all about efficiency, I feel like, digital marketing. We talked a little bit about account-based marketing and trying to get to the specific account. You're going to talk a little bit about hyper-personalization. And even in the topic of trying to target individuals a little bit more directly, you need a message that's going to speak to that audience. You need creative that's going to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward as a business to increase your credibility with that audience. So we see our advertisers getting more focused in terms of where they're showing ads and how many ads they're showing. But in order to actually get engagement, creative is the only thing that's really going to make a user take the next step, right? And if you think about the whole user journey getting to that final ad where they make an action, they decide to actually go with a brand, there's an entire messaging journey that isn't seen that leads to that point. And for a lot of our clients who have, maybe been a lot more utilitarian with their ad creative, I think that there's going to be a return to a conversation in investing in real creative and using this type of incrementality measurement to understand the impact of that investment.
Totally, Josh. And it's crazy how many, like, you think of a B2B company as one that's just kind of selling you on
Right.
your bottom line or top line impact that you can have to your business. But they're totally not thinking about how, on the other side of that ad, someone that's seeing it is a human, right?
Yeah.
The human, responds more to, emotion than they do to kind of like information. And so as B2B brands begin to kind of evolve this and you keep to hold your creative teams accountable, continue to bring this feedback loop and keep pushing them to how do you like spur an emotional connection to your ads, to make that user kind of take that action, remember your brand and have a positive brand affinity towards that. I think is definitely like a big trend that's kind of taking place and shape. Yeah. Not many people can kind of get it right, and that's kind of on the feedback that you have with your internal teams and keep pushing them there, right?
Definitely. But I mean, we're marketers, we're creative people by nature. Being squeezed into a box where everything is so utilitarian is a little bit counter to our nature. So it's nice to see things start to move back in that direction. A lot of our clients are getting into video for the first time. It's a completely different thing than writing a search ad or writing, or creating a display ad. So I think a lot of those things point back to leveraging creatives and creative minds to develop your advertising. And in terms of hyper-personalization, I've covered a little bit in terms of account-based marketing and ideal customer profiles and how to reach folks. But Yuri, I think that you have a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do to instill that you're not just targeting someone with a message, but actually triggering that response, because of what you know about them.
Yeah.
And of course, hyper-personalized ads just have a much bigger lift in the engagement, and they lower your acquisition costs and as well as your kind of spend efficiency over time. And there's research that supports that. And it's kind of as we move through and you try to become much more personal by trying to capture, and drive that action at the right place, the right time, and as well, why your brand, that becoming much more personalized is kind of a big trend that I see taking place. But it's almost like a direct conflict with what could be coming down with some of it on the regulation side, Josh.
Sure.
And just making it much more difficult for marketers to kind of be able to serve up those super personalized ads, to the end user. With what's coming with the California Consumer Protection Act that we know is slowly taking shape and looking to impact us in early 2020. We're going to begin to just see like a lot more kind of headwinds that we're going to have to navigate moving into the future in order to maintain that as advertisers and keep driving those cost efficiencies that have been such an important benchmark.
Definitely. Still a lot to be determined there.
Right. Very definitely.
So we're kind of in wait and see mode. In the meantime, you think about investing in really great creative and getting really personalized with that. It's good for the end user as well. Being able to apply, say, like artificial intelligence software on top of that to create the best, like ultimate creative for any given viewer of an ad. That's a really exciting way that marketing is heading. That I think that we're ready to take advantage of. Our clients are kind of like gearing their marketing departments more and more around this new type of creative.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, guys. Let's wrap up with a third question as we kind of right before we get into how you guys drove results with Quora ads. So last question before we get into that is, like, how do you determine and how do you figure out what is your approach for going into a new channel?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been really deliberate with which channels we'll actually manage for our clients. And I think it really comes down to a handful of factors. And reputability is the first. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Is it brand safe, right? Are we happy to put our clients' ads there? Is it a quality audience? And we, don't do some types of advertising that have those types of issues, specifically because we want to be able to transact with our clients' brands in places where we know the audience is strong. Beyond that, though, there needs to be relevance. So our client's audience actually needs to be there, and there needs to be scale. So we have to know that there's going to be enough opportunity with that platform to spend the time on it, right? Because not everything, you can get super, super targeted, but if you're only reaching a handful of people, it's not really actually going to be a good use of time, either for your agency or for your internal marketing team. And next up, is it measurable? Increasingly, this is everything, but some things are more measurable than others. And that is a relatively recent development, that everything has become more measurable. LinkedIn ads, for instance, is already a staple for our B2B clients. They didn't even add conversion tracking until 2016, right? That was just a few years ago. And even for things like programmatic, it's hard, but it's not impossible. And we're becoming increasingly measurable all the time. But measurability is super duper important to both us and our clients. And then finally, does it work? When you actually get those measured results, is it something where it's going to provide new customers for our clients? And is it going to provide that more often than not, right? Can we optimize it? I think that's another thing. Is there a direction for us to go once we get in? There's always going to be a learning phase, but is there a place for us to go afterwards so that we can actually kind of, develop into where our audience is? And all of these things, I think that we also keep in mind it's important to revisit new channels. So if we dive into something for the first time, if it doesn't work that first time, that doesn't mean it's never going to work. We want to return to things and try them again. I've worked with concepts during the very early days of Facebook advertising, when there wasn't really a lot of good performance from Facebook ads because they hadn't figured out the ad product yet. Now it's, if you're a marketer digitally, you're running Facebook ads. It's something you do as a staple, it's a pillar. So yeah, there's a bunch of emerging channels. It's really about working with them over time, measuring results, and then optimizing from there.
Fantastic. Well, as Quora is one of those, emerging new channels, and since we have, Josh here from MetricTheory, we got Yuri here from Zenefits, they had some really great results with Quora ads. So let's transition into that part of the webinar, and let's start with, how did you guys decide on picking Quora ads?
So Zenefits, kind of a little bit of background on the company. Kind of our big, hairy, audacious goal, BHAG, is to really help to level the playing field for the other 99.7% of companies by targeting the SMBs here in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all the companies that employ between 2 and 1,000 employees, with kind of the right tools, the technology and the services to help them really engage their employees, better retain them, and to help recruit as well. And so, because Zenefits has such kind of a large addressable market doing business here in the United States and targeting all of these SMBs, what we wanted to do is we wanted to keep exploring a channel where we could find, a relevant communities that were kind of active across all of the kind of influencers, buyers in our sort of target market. And those include those in HR and SMB business owners, executives across finance and operations. And then to be able to help, how do you determine those that are kind of really active, actively looking, trying to search for practical questions, and be able to help to serve up different ad types to those audiences that are relevant to them, of course. And so that's why we kind of, MetricTheory suggested Quora as a platform for us to kind of target. And so, so a little bit about why Zenefits also chose to partner with MetricTheory to help our performance marketing efforts was we were at a point where we were kind of really helping to just kind of scale, sort of our digital spend. And when we put out an RFP, what we got from the MetricTheory team was just that they had, top talent with really deep channel-specific expertise. They had a really data-driven team culture. They really wanted to help elevate the results of their clients that was actionable, that was kind of engaging. And could really help to make kind of leaders like myself look a lot better. And then they brought a ton of creative problem solving to some of the issues that we were facing that we didn't quite see from some of our other some of the other prospects that we were assessing. And then of course we got from that their clients' goals are really the kind of #1 priority.
Nice. Well, cool. So let's talk about some of those goals. So we talked about like what Zenefit is. We talked about how you picked Metric Theory and then why you talked about Quora. But what were some of those like platform specific things you guys were looking for?
Yeah. There were clearly a few things that we were looking to do with the Quora effort. And, for things like search, social advertising, LinkedIn advertising that Zenefits had done previously, all of those goals were pretty clearly defined. With Quora, we had an opportunity to do something a little bit different, right? So anytime you're looking at a new channel, the number one thing you're looking for is, again, back to that concept of incrementality, it's incremental reach, right? Are you reaching net new folks that wouldn't have otherwise seen ads for your business? Those audiences, you're already explained, it's HR professionals, small business owners, and even startup founders who are kind of looking to navigate HR issues that they're not experts in.
Yeah, no, definitely, Josh. As your company grows and you encounter certain different different employee related things that just start popping up, the long tail of how to navigate, perhaps how to terminate someone in a specific state, in the right way. It just gets longer and longer and longer. You might be looking at how to stand up and pay your people. So what we found on Quora was there were different groups that existed in these, across each of our different personas that were asking questions in all these different places. But it gave us that ability to help to kind of target all of them on one platform and kind of break out our campaigns in that way.
Right. So really interesting community already existed on Quora for each one of those audiences and good interaction with the number of questions. HR professionals and startup founders share something and they're self-taught, right? They're going to find information because typically people are coming to them, asking them questions. They need to figure out that information quickly. So Quora is a great way for them to do that. And of course, we're a performance marketing agency. What it comes down to as to whether or not we continue with Quora with Zenefits is to get them qualified leads. That's the thing that they care about. So these are any companies, any specific individuals of those companies that meet Zenefits, tough criteria on what their sales team actually eventually needs or what their marketing team is looking for to add to their community.
Absolutely. And then we get strong indication of where these guys are in their growth cycle in order to better to help to sort of market them and navigate them on their career to helping to implement an HR software that's built for small business. So really check that criteria there for us for qualified leads.
And finally, this is a little bit of kind of a bonus that we got from coming to Quora, but really, brand awareness and defense, and then also engaging a community. Yuri talked a little bit about influencers, the folks who are in there answering questions in the HR forums in Quora are going to be ones who naturally are probably going to be doing the same thing elsewhere, right? So if we get Zenefits brand in front of that audience, it's going to be a net win for Zenefits. And then also Zenefits is a huge platform. Thousands and thousands of businesses already use Zenefits. There are folks that are on Quora either talking about Zenefits or asking about Zenefits at any given time. So we also wanted to be serving that audience with useful content about Zenefits so that they could find the answer they're looking for in a number of ways.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of people start with search, right? So it's kind of like, you want to be there on the platforms where people are discovering your brand and learning about your brand. And it definitely gave us that ability to help, begin to engage our community as well to help build the brand itself.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into some tactics now. So let's talk about how you structured the campaign, and then we'll get right into those results that you guys found. But let's start off with structuring the campaign.
Sure. So, one of the things that we like to do targeting wise is to look for, start basically with a pyramid mentality. What is our kind of closest audience and how do we kind of scale that out to a broader audience? So we used Zenefits customer data that we fed into Quora that has a great system to match and try to find an expanded audience for a lookalike audience to Zenefits' most profitable customers currently. So that was one targeting method that we used. We also leveraged the Quora interests targeting. One of the things we liked about interest targeting is that it's totally declarative, right? This is information that users are actually entering as they join Quora to begin with on the subjects that are going to matter to And then finally, topic targeting. This is a more kind of like generally applicable targeting methodology for more channels. But topics in Quora are really specific, right? Human resources, recruiting professionals are going to have really tight, specific content. And the Zenefits brand has a ton of great, like one of the awesome parts about their marketing organization, they have really, really useful content that's available for free to all these audiences already. So we could just put in an ad that was also really helpful to that audience at the time in which they most needed it. They were asking questions.
Totally, Josh. And for each of those kind of targeting tactics that you spoke to there, if you bubble up to our, we have our ad group, we have 3 of them, and one's for HR, one's for kind of that CEO, founder, and the others for startups. And each of those have very, all of those sort of targeting tactics there and at the ad level for each of those ad sets, which is great.
Cool. And then we also at the ad set level split out everything by device type. So desktop versus mobile. We already knew this going into things with Zenefits, that their audiences performed a little bit differently, or the users had different intent levels depending on what devices they were using. So we knew that that would be one way in which we want to split out the audience, because once those leads from each device came into the system, they're going to have different end values.
Absolutely. And what we were really curious about was how the leads converted throughout the funnel as well by device. And so that's also what we had to make sure that we were tracking on the back end, was like, okay, the mobile leads might convert, on the landing page quicker when you've got a highly optimized landing page for mobile, but are they following up and engaging with our nurture cycles and actually setting demos off of some of the content and creative that we're promoting? And how did that behavior change on desktop, and being able to track that through gave us some pretty interesting insights on where to kind of allocate our spend there.
Totally. And for the brand campaign, so anything that was more related to that Zenefits brand awareness, brand defense we were just talking about, we use topic targeting for that. And there's, topics for Zenefits, and then also keyword targeting. So anytime the Zenefits brand came up in the course of content generation on Quora, we wanted to try to serve ads there.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. Well, what were the results like?
Luckily, everyone who's watching the webinar can check out the case study that's available on the Quora for Business portal, and it has these figures. But we definitely were able to get net new customers for Zenefits on the Quora platform. So that was a huge win. Like I was talking about before, when you're looking to expand beyond the channels where it seems like the audience already is, and you don't know where to go next, you want places where you can find new batches of customers. We were able to find that with Quora for Zenefits. Other things that were really nice to find once we were there is that we got a much lower cost of traffic than what we were doing for them on search on LinkedIn. And some of those are kind of naturally a little bit more expensive than others, just depending on the kind of audience targeting criteria. But we found the targeted audience and the traffic that was coming to the website was far less expensive on Quora, 50% less than their existing kind of paid channels that we're managing for them. So that was really nice to find. And then finally, the thing that's most important, right? We also were able to get really effective costs per lead numbers. And, we're tracking even qualified leads from Quora ads for Zenefits. But to find a 40% lower cost per lead than the channels that we were already managing for them, it was kind of a big aha moment, I think, both for our agency and for Zenefits and the team.
Yeah, definitely. And we just kind of classify a qualified lead as actually someone that has had a demo set. So they've agreed to kind of see our product and talk to an AE and kind of learn a little bit more about how we solve their problems. And what's been really interesting to see is, like, when we've got that down funnel tracking in place, to see that Quora actually converts at a comparable rate to our other kind of social campaigns as well for cost efficiency as well as kind of volume. So it's been great to see that kind of follow through from what we've been talking about here around kind of targeting, around audiences, around kind of creative optimizations that we've been able to make on Quora, and how that's actually had direct impact on our sales pipeline.
Fantastic. Woo. I like that. Man, we need more. If you're listening and you also have these results, reach out. But yeah, this is really good stuff. Good work, you guys, from agency side, but also, I mean, hats off to Yuri for tracking further down the funnel, even down by device. I hope all of you guys are listening are also thinking about how you're tracking those leads, even down to device, pass qualified, getting those demos in. So I'm going to talk to you guys quickly about some best practices. And these are coming from myself, who is an advertiser for, over 10 years now. And then also now as the Quora evangelist, leveraging some internal data. So those of you guys who are listening, you guys are going to get a sneak peek on some stuff that we haven't revealed before. So stay tuned in a couple of slides. But first, let's talk about how MetricTheory and Zenefits were really leveraging kind of like a full funnel approach. And you can kind of understand, this was actually me a couple of weeks ago. I was presenting at a conference in the UK, and I started reading about content about traveling to the UK. And then you can kind of understand, well, we're going to be in London. So like, what does that look like? Visiting London and then, purchase. I'm like, really like, what are the best free museums, right? And you can kind of see that intent. All of you guys that are used to those search advertising platforms are going to fully understand this. But you can also understand this from a question and answer perspective as well. And so some of our most popular targeting that goes through looks something like this. I'm reading content, I'm reading about visiting London, and then ultimately I'm reading answers comparing those free museums. So you can kind of see this awareness to consideration all the way down through the purchase cycle. Now for influencing the entire funnel, it's very similar to what they were talking about. So starting with this lookalike targeting, you can upload those email lists. You can build lookalikes off of your website audiences as well, and really understand who your best customer are. And let's go get more people like them. You can utilize topic targeting. This is how Quora is organized. We heard them talking about HR software and recruiting. Like those are all topics. So think about those keywords that you're targeting, maybe with your paid search accounts, or maybe those personas that you've built out, and understand that that's how you can also target on Quora. And then lastly, utilize some question targeting and website retargeting. With the question targeting, don't expect a ton of scale, as we talk about. You can get down to the very specific question, but don't expect that to scale into massive results. Too many people come in making that mistake, but it's a really good laser focused. If that's the question that is relevant to you and your business, make sure that you're targeting it. And here's an example of all of our targeting, going from as broad as you can all the way down to question. And then the most popular being that topic and keyword aspects of it. So the other part to this is to understand that Quora offers behavioral and contextual targeting. Now, this is a little bit different. This is where that paid search and that paid social gets blended together. So behavioral, this is the actions that you have taken on the platform, and we're now following you across Quora. We're following you because you have shown behavior, you have upvoted, you have commented, you have answered, you've read something on Quora. Now with contextual, this is where the ad will show up. So if you say target a topic, that ad will only show up in the topic. But if you chose interest, it would be you had an interest in this topic, and now we're going to follow you maybe in the news feed, maybe in a different area within the Quora platform. And then lastly, you got those custom audiences and those list match. So you can use that website retargeting, upload those emails, and again, target your audience that way. It's a great way to leverage that first-party data that you have. So for you that haven't gotten started, what are you doing? Go get started. No credit card required to set up an ad account. We love this self-serve aspect. So head on over to Quora.com/business, get started, and you can install the Quora Pixel. So if you don't believe me that your audience is on there and you have permission to get into your Google Tag Manager, or maybe you're using Segment, we just rolled out our Tag Manager integration. You can get it installed in a few minutes. Once you do that, you'll be able to understand those remarketing audiences. So the boss is like, I'm not convinced Quora's on there. Or maybe you're like Josh, you have to convince your clients that, hey, Quora could be a really good one. Go in, set up your ad account, set up the pixel, and then make a quick remarketing audience and just see how many of audiences and what size is coming from your website that's also on Quora. Now, just know once you put in that pixel, it takes about 24 hours to start populating. So maybe come back after a day, maybe a week, to kind of understand and cross-reference that traffic. Lastly, don't forget that email upload. This is a quick win as well. Upload it. It takes about 24 hours for that match rate. So go in, put it in on Monday, come back Tuesday, and just look at your match rate, see what it is. Also know that, hey, Quora is going to have a lot of those personal emails, so don't expect those business emails to perform really well here. So this is where those Yahoo, those Gmail ones that you might be having success with on LinkedIn, or maybe you're having success with those on Facebook, upload them here and see what your match rate is on Quora as well. It's a great win to understand if Quora is going to be a potential good platform for you just by using the data that you already have. So now some tips. I got 6 tips for you, and these are some of my favorite ones. And a lot of these Josh and Yuri are already doing, and they're already seeing great results. So you can also have great results just like Zenefit by using some of these. So 1, run ads on your competition. Love this one. I'm looking up Trello, and I see one of their competitors running ads on them. So Josh was talking about how they were doing this, really to understand and to block, right? Like you don't want your competitor running ads on you. So make sure you're going in there, you're blocking your competitors, but also go see if your competitors are running ads on you and go run some ads on them. I hate it, but I love it. It's such a good tactic. As a in-house marketer now, I'm like, no, don't do it, but it works out really well. Josh also talked about breaking out device. I'm a huge fan of this one because as he was talking about, like, people really are different on mobile as versus desktop. And I think their intent is different. I think whenever I'm on desktop, I think about my situation. I'm probably at work. I'm probably on my laptop. I'm probably like looking for that solution and I'm like ready to go. Where maybe mobile, I'm in not quite ready to convert, but that's not always true. But I like to go ahead and when in doubt, just break it out type of mentality of desktop and mobile. Because when you do it in the beginning, you're not going to lose the data if you have to break it out. So if you're like Zenefits and you're tracking down to the device, go ahead, start from the very beginning from desktop and mobile. You'll also see performance is a little bit different there as well. Number 3, exclusions. This one is, in my opinion, under leveraged, and it's one that you can exclude. So you can exclude audiences, you can exclude topics, you can exclude keywords, locations, questions. You can really shape who you want to target and get rid of some stuff that you don't want to be next to. So make sure that you're going in at the ad set level, you're typing in your targeting, and you're taking advantage of those exclusions to really shape who you're wanting to do. With the audience perspective, maybe, we're talking about incrementality. Maybe you want to get rid of anyone that's visited your website. Maybe you want to get rid of all those email lists. So that way you're only really getting those net new people coming through. This is one way that you could help secure that. Exclude those audiences. So I got a weird one for you. Performance marketers are like, CPM bidding, what? But this is a good one. You can actually conquest those like niche topics, so like those smaller topics. So here's an example. This one has business travel. It only has 3,000 followers. And these are people that have raised their hand and said, I want to follow this topic and I want to see more information like this. By using CPM bidding, what you're ultimately end up doing is getting in front of them as much as possible. And this is a really great way. So you may not necessarily get the intent of people who are most likely to click. That would be CPC bidding. Or if you're using CPA bidding, most likely to convert. This is really like conquesting an entire topic. So I like to use this one, maybe like those 10,000 and below, maybe 15,000 and below topics where you're just really trying to make sure that you've got as much brand presence as you can on that topic. So go ahead, check that one out. It's pretty good. Now we offer a lot of call to actions, and make sure that you're aligning it with your ad, but also play around and test. So we've actually seen that read more performs best on mobile. Now, why does that perform more? Maybe it's because most of you guys are using this one. It's also true. It's the most picked one, but it's also because it tends to work really well for mobile whenever you're trying to get people to read more. And that could be a downloadable. You could be saying, hey, come check out this blog. It really just depends on what action you're trying to get. It's the most used, but it also performs the best. So kind of think through and play around with some of these other ones. If you have a sign up, a start now, if you have a get quote, free trial kind of. So play around. We've got a lot of different ways for you to call to action and experiment, test them out with different types of ads. Auction insights. Oh man, I'm in love with this one. We released this one in Q1. And now we're able to actually get deeper level insights and optimization. So we can see how competitive your ad is in the ad set. So we released 3 new metrics. 1, auctions lost to competition, impression share, and absolute impression share. I'm going to run through them right here so you guys can actually have a definition from our product team, because I'm going to mess this one up. So impression share. Again, you guys fully understand this when you're search marketers. This is the percent of auctions that you were in and you won. You were in the auction. You won the auction. Now we use a VCG auction. It's very similar to Facebook's auction. So we don't have like a second or like Google search where, it's only a penny more. It really is bidding your true value. How much are you willing to pay for that click to win the most amount of placements? And those placements are what you'll ultimately see in the absolute impression share. So this is when the percent of auctions which were in the ad set you entered and you were the top available spot. That's really important, especially if you're doing that topic targeting, question targeting. That means you were the number 1 position. And then for auctions lost to competition, it means you didn't win an available spot. So you were losing to your competition. In that case, that's where you want to start looking at your ad copy and maybe your bid, because maybe it's not competitive enough to win an available slot. And then I got a bonus one. People are loving this as well, is our promoted answers. So if you've got organic content where you've got blogs and you've got people writing on Quora, you can now pay to promote answers. And it's a great way for that like light touch awareness campaign. Then you can actually retarget everyone that's read it. So I love this one. So I got a promoted answer in here. Maybe I'm talking about how great Zenefits is and their HR software. And I know that you read this message. I know you saw it. And now I can retarget you lower in the funnel with maybe like a download, or maybe that next book a demo type of call to action. And then last, we can get that email list or maybe some website retargeting to really help close out that lead. So this is a really good one because it scales really well as far as that promoted answer, and it's going to feel very native on Quora. All right, those are my 6 takeaways plus a bonus. We'll call it 7 because that would be 6 plus 1. So some key takeaways. I'm gonna turn it over here. So here's a few best practices from Zenefits and MetricTheory, and they put together for you guys an amazing list here with segmentations, ad sets, bidding, ad creative. I'm gonna turn it over to Josh and Yuri to kind of wrap up you guys' section.
Sure. So definitely share a lot of similarities with the tips that JD just went over. But our tips for you guys, what we've learned from running with Zenefits specifically, starting with segmentation. So keep in mind that budgets are going to be set at the campaign level for Quora. So what does that mean? We were talking about the audience types, the different audience types we run with Zenefits. Those are all separated out into unique campaigns so that we can budget according to the audience that's working best. And then even within those audiences, JD brought up a good targeting method on specific questions, right? If you find specific questions that are performing well, you can pull those out into their own campaign. You can take, specific audiences within the HR subset, within the startup founder subset, and pull those into their own campaign so you can budget them specifically. With ad sets, that's where you control your bids, right? So campaigns for budgets, ad sets for bids. That's why we have devices separated at the ad set level. And as JD pointed out, with Auction Insights, that's where you can see how much actual volume is available to you. So if we are going to talk to Zenefits about what opportunity is present for them, if they go to quarterly budgeting, we can actually use Auction Insights to be telling them we can spend this much more by projecting out what the cost would be to go get more audience for a specific device and audience segment that's working well. With bidding, you want to start with CPC bidding. So I think a lot of our clients have seen a lot of success, especially with social platforms like Facebook, with bidding to a cost per action. But with Quora, you really want to start with CPC bidding to get scale with that audience first and to start learning. So once you actually hit a certain number of conversions, and Quora recommends about 20 a week, that's when you should switch from CPC bidding over to CPA bidding. And for the Zenefits program, we've had a lot of success with the cost per conversion bidding.
Sure have, yeah, been able to drive a lot of cost efficiencies, from these campaigns across the different ad sets that we're using to control our bids. And it's been great to kind of see that optimization build and grow and help our spend become more efficient over time.
And we wouldn't have gotten there if we wouldn't have allowed the algorithm a little bit of time to learn. Absolutely. So you have to start with CPC building to get scale. And as JD pointed out, this is a blind auction type where you're paying your true value. So really keep that in mind in terms of how you set those bids to start. Start higher maybe than your comfort zone to get scale, and then adjust from there. In ad creative, we talked a lot about the importance of creative. What we've learned so far, definitely, run image ads if you can. There is a text ad format. The text ad placements will come with image ad listings. So if you have the ability to create image ads, we recommend it just from the click-through rate that we've seen on those. And then for creating those image ads to begin with, if you run social advertising, a lot of that stuff will translate well into this format. One thing to consider is it's not going to be the exact same size of image on the ad. So keep that in mind. You're going to probably want to limit the amount of text that you put on an ad, especially in, say, a mobile environment compared to a desktop environment, just to make sure that you're not having your audience try to squint too hard to read what your text overlay on the ad says. There's plenty of good opportunity in the text area of the ad to write your message.
100% agree with what you're saying there, JD. I mean, you've got obviously description and headline there to kind of play with to help elevate what you're trying to state in your creative.
All right. And then I'll wrap up just kind of quickly. Get the Quora Pixel, installed. That's a great way because you'll be able to run conversion campaigns as they were able to do with their, getting those CPA. And then also that remarketing audience. You can't build those out without the Pixel. Experiment with your audience targeting. As we talked about, when in doubt, break it out. I really love the device breakouts. I love breaking out, topics and interests, and don't be afraid to break those into different campaigns as well as you're really trying to look to scale. Review those auction insights. And then lastly, test your ad creative. I think that's going to be the biggest, lever, as going back to what Josh and you were talking about in the very beginning about when we talk about creative. This is really what's going to help you stand out, is really what headlight are you running? Are you asking a question? Are you not asking a question? Quora looks and feels very Q&A heavy. Experiment, ask a question. What question do you want to ask? You really get to kind of tailor that to the intent and to the topics and to the audiences that you're ultimately trying to reach. So play around with that, because that's what's going to be a huge lever for you when you're really trying to get that CTR improvement. And when you get a great CTR, hopefully that'll lower that CPC. Hopefully that'll lower that CPA, right? So it all works down. And as marketers, we all love some acronyms. All right. So stay in touch with this. Again, you can reach out to me at Quora. You got Josh at MetricTheory, and you got Yuri at Zenefits. We're all open with our emails, with our Twitter. Reach out. Let us know what you thought, what you liked, what you didn't like. And hopefully next time we'll be seeing you here, all happy Quora advertisers. Thanks, everyone.